Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today's guest spent years competing for England and Great Britain in beach volleyball, pushing her body to the absolute limit at the highest level. Now, she does something completely different. She teaches people how to use the breath to regulate the nervous system and get out of the fight or flight state most of us are stuck in without even realizing it. After years of elite sport, Liana built a life looking after different people's families and then building a business of her own. Then her mental health fell apart. One breathwork session later, and she knew exactly what she was going to do next. So if you're the kind of bloke who's never sat still long enough to notice how wound up you actually are, who thinks calm is something that other people have time for, then this one is definitely for you. Liana, welcome to the next chapter.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, so what was your childhood like, and how did you get into beach volleyball?
Yeah, so my childhood, lovely. I was only child and mum and dad worked a lot, to be honest. I loved sport. I always loved sport. So when I was in middle school, I was 9 and I was really fortunate because my PE teacher at the time, she just happened to love volleyball. So we got taught that at school. And I remember when my mum says that I apparently went home and was like, found this incredible game. It's the best game in the world. I love it so much. And I think I was hooked, I gather. I can't quite remember, to be honest, early on. But yeah, and also I was very tall. I am very tall. I'm 6'2", and I was 6 foot when I was around 12 already. So growing up, that was really challenging, actually. It did present a lot of challenges for me as a teenager and even older, to be honest. But being tall helped with volleyball, obviously. And yeah, I represented my country when I was 13 at indoor volleyball. Got to go to some really amazing places around the world as a teenager. And then in my 20s, I switched from indoor volleyball to beach volleyball, which really is a very, very, very different game, actually. Indoor, there are 6 players on the court at one time, and beach, there are 2. So, yes, that's how I sort of got into it.
Okay, did your parents? I mean, were they pushy parents? Were they really sort of pushing you because they could see you had a you had you were naturally gifted, or was it more you? Do you think?
I think it was definitely more me. My dad, my late dad, who's wonderful but not here anymore, he was very pushy in other ways, like for music and piano and things like that, which definitely backfired because I stopped doing a lot of the things that he pushed me to try and do, as often happens. But yeah, volleyball, I don't think I needed much of a push for that. I did really want to do it and really enjoyed it. Yeah, and to be honest, I can remember now they must have spent every week whenever they weren't working, they were driving me somewhere. So almost every weekend we had to go to do various things around the country. And yeah, so if it wasn't really for my mum, especially driving me around and doing that, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it.
You definitely needed supportive parents when you were doing when you were obviously competing and all the training that goes along with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I was very lucky with that. Yeah, yes. Overall, very supportive. Bit of a lot of criticism, probably also that from my dad. But again, yeah, I'm grateful for all of it. Really, even though that was tough, actually. Yes.
Was there lots of pressure as well, like competing like for England and Great Britain when you were playing volleyball?
Yes. Yeah. I think I was very tall, obviously, which helps, but felt like I was always an underdog fighting for my place to try and make the teams and the team. And that is definitely true. I don't think volleyball came naturally to me at all, it's fair to say. I just really liked it and I wanted to do it. So that's how I am with most things in life. If I want something and I want to do it and make a decision to, then I will usually try and make it happen. But yeah, there was a
So
lot of
yeah, sorry, go on.
No, you could know. I was just saying, yeah, there was a lot of pressure. And to be quite honest with you, the majority of it probably came from myself. Definitely did. I have a very harsh inner critic that really I've only learned to tame over the last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years. Before that, everything was a very negative, oh, silly girl, that was stupid, this really, really harsh inner voice. A lot of that came from my dad, to be fair. And also the voice of coaches growing up. A lot of things were wrong. That's not right. You're not moving your body the right way. So, you take it's very difficult to not take that on board, I think, especially when you're young. And then if you form those patterns when you're young, it's hard to then break when you get older. Right?
Do you think that's a price that top athletes pay, having that inner critic pushing you all the time to be the best?
Do you know, I don't know because I'm not sure. I only know my own experience, although I've been really fortunate. I'm a breathwork coach now, and I just a couple of months back went to work for the Austrian beach volleyball team. They're incredible. They're doing so well. And we worked on a lot of things like that, like you're in a critic and what have you. But look, I think a lot of people have that. It's just how you deal with it and how you handle it. Really great mental fitness is a lot of positive self-talk, which is ideal, right? But let's be honest, a lot of people maybe tend to be more negative than positive. So
So your transition from being an athlete into breathwork, what pulled you towards breathwork specifically, rather than any other path?
yeah, well, great question. Thank you. I just ended up doing volleyball because I loved it. I didn't really have a life plan. I did go to uni, but I went to uni in the States. I had a scholarship when I was 18, but I was there for 2 years and then I decided to come back and switch to beach volleyball. So I didn't even finish my degree actually. So I never had any other life plans. And then actually when I retired from beach volleyball, I did scratch my head a bit and think, oh, what am I going to do now? Yeah, and then that's probably when my life started to get a bit downhill because I moved into another career path. I'd always done childcare in the off season for volleyball, which is just a couple of months a year, but I'd always got really, really good childcare jobs, to be honest, because I had a good qualification in that at the time. Was very fortunate to work for some great families. So when I left sport, I then moved into childcare and was a nanny and a PA. And I was lucky. I worked in Belgium. I worked in New York. So I had a really great job there. I'm going to try and brief this for you, Luke, so as not to bore you. Then I started.
Yeah, no worries.
Then I started a recruitment agency of my own in household staff, nannies, childcares, nannies, housekeepers, all of that stuff. And then I had my own family, so I had 2 children of my own. And what I didn't realize, and actually I've only come to realize it in the last few years, was going from playing sport and moving my body every single day for hours a day, 4 to 6 hours a day. You're physically training in some form or another, be it on the sand or in the gym. Doing that to go from that to almost nothing, actually, some days, I didn't realize how much of a toll that took. It probably just chipped away at me, and in every way, physically, definitely mentally, emotionally, just from a health perspective, wasn't in my body. I was in my mind, overthinking, ruminating, not being in my body. And I think, it just got a hold of me really, and I got really down, for quite a few years. And then I did one breathwork session one day. I was really struggling, really very, very low. And I had to get help with that a few times. And then I found breathwork just online. It must have been a 3 a.m. search when I was just desperate for help, probably crying a lot at the time. And then I found a particular style of breathwork, conscious connected breathing, did one session online, absolutely blew my mind. And then I just kept saying in the integration part afterwards, which is the most important part. You've done the big breath work or whatever it might be somatically. The integration part, really, really key. In that part, I remember just saying to myself again and again, I know I'm going to teach this and I know it's going to make me well. So from that point onwards, I think I just booked a course. I then have been studying ever since. And I just knew that I would.
So at your lowest point, when you were really, really struggling, when you were transitioning, obviously coming out from being an athlete, what did a really bad day look like? Sort of paint us a picture, because I think is such an important thing, especially on a podcast like this, to sort of dive into that identity shift, because it must be so hard.
Getting me vulnerable now, Luke. So, like I said, it did creep up on me. Uh, Relationship ended with my children's dad. Really struggled to know who I was. Uh, I'm not sure how much of each factor is that. There was not just the leaving sport thing and not being in my body as much as I would describe it. There was also, I'm a mama, and that's a huge thing for mums and dads, right? That changed a lot. Purpose, passion in life. I think maybe some parents might relate to this, that you think for a while that that is your children, that they're my purpose in life. And actually that isn't where my purpose ends. So on a bad day, and then I had a very difficult situation that I was going through at the time, and we spoke a bit before the call, but I developed a very bad stutter and speech impediment. Some days I couldn't get a word out. It affected my life a lot, and I was very low, didn't want to be here anymore. I had to get some help for that. My nearest and dearest didn't really know what was going on. I hid that really well. Just became very recluse, didn't really talk to anyone, and I kept everything inside because that's what I did since I was a little girl. I never felt like I had a safe place for emotions to go. And it's why I love to do what I do now so much, because yeah, I never knew how to safely express myself or had anyone that I felt I could go to with it. And now I love to show people that that is completely possible. Emotions are really healthy, and running from them is usually where the problem starts. So it wasn't great. I had to get help for that. And do you know, it's really funny to look back on, actually. Just, it doesn't even feel like me. That person doesn't even feel like me. But my speech got better over time doing breath work, really helped me a lot. Obviously, great for your central nervous system. And I think I was so stuck in such bad fight or flight for so long. I was reading about it, and it's really, really clever. So anyone that has, and this isn't always the case, by the way, but certain times when you struggle with PTSD, CPTSD, might be going through something, your amygdala, like the sort of smoke alarm of your brain, as it were, is sending a message that you're not safe. And what I've read and understood is that that can impact an area of your brain called the Broca's area, which is responsible for speech. So it's really clever, actually, what we do to protect ourselves, which doesn't feel great at the time, right? Um, so yes, and it's very hard for me to take you back there because it feels like such a long way away for me.
How long was that period? Was it years or was it months that you were struggling?
Probably I was depressed for years, actually. I just hid it quite well from myself also. But yeah, very, very badly struggling. 2 years, probably.
So you say that you had your first breathwork session and then you knew that this is what you were going to teach. How
Yes.
did it make you feel, and how did you really know that this was the start of something special?
That's such a good question. I felt deeply sad. I cried through most of it, which was amazing. And I just came out the other side of it just feeling like, oh, there you are. Like, there I am. The way I describe it to my clients now is that I just felt like the core of us is here, right? I just felt like I was somewhere over here, and I had to pull myself back and remember who I was. And that's how I just felt after just one session. Yeah, just amazing for me, like a really, really big, profound, like aha moment is how I would describe it. And the cool thing is, with breathwork, what I love is that you haven't taken a substance, you haven't had to go elsewhere or be given anything. All you've done is use your own breathing. Everything you've experienced, you created. It was inside you the whole time. It's just a really magical thing. So maybe if you were to use an intervention or something like that, it would be hard to know where you end and that substance or that person or whatever it is begins. It's very how much of what you feel is yours. Whereas with breath work, it just blows my mind every time, because everything you experience during a session and afterwards is all you. And that's pretty cool to think that our body can do that just from breathing.
How did you find out about this, about breathwork? Was it through a friend? Was it on the internet? How did this session come about?
Well, I've been doing quite a bit of research, and thinking, oh, what do I need? Or I didn't want to do the talking therapy. I didn't want to do any of that, because I will just say here, I think talking therapy is incredible. I think it's great, and it's a really, really great lifeline for so many people. For me, my own personal experience is I think it's best paired with somatic work. So being in your body, doing things that are in your body rather than milling things around in your mind all the time. That's my own. Everyone's different. That's important for me and what has helped for me. I think the two work really nicely hand in hand. I hadn't felt great from talking therapy alone at all, actually. In fact, at the time the place I was at the time, I just found it re-traumatizing. I found just going over the same stuff, and I just my body then didn't feel, I wasn't getting anywhere. I was just feeling worse in my body every time I came out. But coupled with breath work or something else, similar somatic, I think great.
How did you come across the session? Was it through
Yeah.
a friend, or were you yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
So I'd been doing research, didn't want to do another talking therapy session. I was thinking, what else can I do? And then I came across breathwork. I've been doing some kind of sort of everyday calm breathwork stuff that I'd found online. And then with a guy called Michelle Biker, really like his stuff, really great. Everything I was finding was quite pranayama-y and quite yoga-y and Eastern, and I really enjoyed it, but it didn't quite feel like me. And then I came across a guy that everybody should follow, if they don't already, called Josh Connolly. And I did his session, and he did a free online session, and that's when it clicked for me. So I've been doing some breathwork stuff. I've been getting into it, and it felt like, good. It felt like that was going to be really good for me. But his stuff, next level. I did one of his sessions, blew my mind. And actually, we have very similar styles of music that we like. I think it's fair to say. Yeah, it just made it relevant to me. Yeah.
Elite athletes like yourself, they're trained to push through pain and ignore what their body's telling them. Did that training work against you?
Could you elaborate? In what way?
Well,
Okay. So just basically just cracking on when things are
yeah,
tough.
exactly. Just pushing through, and yeah, just cracking on. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it probably did. Yeah, it probably did. I don't know how
Yeah.
much I don't know how much of that was my own stuff though, was my own pride and not wanting to be weak and being like, come on, what's wrong with you? Get your head together, grow up, all of that negative self-talk again. People have it much worse. All of this stuff I'm sure you're familiar with, but yeah, maybe it went against me a little bit.
So, what does a client actually need before they're ready to sit still and breathe properly? Because I'm sure you can't just rush into this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, there are so breathwork is so vast. There are so many different styles of breathwork, as you probably know, but I maybe controversially, not that I care, am a little bit against. I've never been one for, oh, let's all do some calm box breathing, or let's do some 4-7-8 breathing, or 5-7-8 breathing. It's not for me, and that is for several reasons. I think actually, if you're highly activated and you are not in a great place, to then come all the way down here and let's just sit and be calm actually can be really traumatizing and distressing. Also, it can be like that could almost heighten, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do this? Why can't I get it together? I can't even do a bit of breathing,
Straight. Yeah.
Very frustrating. Yeah. And then it makes us think that there's something wrong with us. And actually it's very, very difficult to just sit with yourself and be with yourself. What I primarily facilitate is in group sessions and one-to-ones is a style called conscious connected breathing, which again, this is the style that I found, and I love it so much. It's a very deep style of breathing. It takes you deeply into yourself, and for many people, you have a very profound experience and experience the depths of who you are. Really, that's not the only style of breathwork, though. So it really depends. It's really person centered. It depends what someone feels like, what they need. I can't say it's great for everybody because I don't believe that to be true. But I think if a person is ready for it, then it might be a lovely part of their journey. I don't know. But if I meet a client one-to-one and they'd like to do it, then we would speak about that and see whether or not it might work for them at this time and so forth. But also, I do work with people on a functional breathing basis. A lot of us are going around, it's sort of a vicious circle. A lot of us are going around, we're upper chest breathing, which can actually cause anxiety and stress and tension because we're not fully using and recruiting our diaphragm. And then because we're stressed, then we do more upper chest breathing. So it's a bit of a vicious circle there. So just actually learning to breathe properly, which no one really taught us, right, can make a huge impact on your health, huge impact, and can really change things. But a lot of people, the struggle is sometimes a lot of people think breathwork's boring, and actually it's really cool. So I think when I started my business, a big goal of mine was to try and target maybe groups of people that wouldn't usually find breathwork. So the sort of music I play, I love house music, I love electronic stuff, I love drum and bass. That's what I always start my sessions with, always. Then we mellow it out. I have a lot of men come to sessions, which I'm very proud of, and that's what I also wanted. And I think as well, because I familiar, and this is a stereotype, I appreciate, but I'm familiar with how it feels to bottle things up and not feel able to talk to anyone, to try and crack on and be strong and not show any weakness. I'm very familiar with that. And the thing I love about it is that you can just come into a room, you don't need to talk, you just lay there, do some breathing and experience. You don't need to share anything actually. So, yes.
So for someone listening to this, and there will be people listening to this thinking, like you just said, they'll be skeptical. They'll be, it's just breathing. You can't change your state with it. You're either breathing or you're not. Because I've met so many people who are really skeptical about this kind of stuff. What would you say to them?
That's tough. Yeah, when people say like, "Oh, breathwork's not for me," I do find it like, I understand the resistance to it because ultimately all breathwork is spending time with yourself, which should be really easy, right? Just spend time with yourself. I appreciate that's mildly terrifying for many of us because we can't sit still and be in silence. Not everyone, but a lot of people find that hard. You go home, you put Netflix on, you put music on, you've got to be on your phone all the time. It's very hard to just be with yourself. So I appreciate that. But when someone says breathwork's not for me, I'm like breathwork is you. What are you not for you? You know? Um, I work with, I would love to shout them out actually, because they are incredible and they're probably one of the like best bits of work that I do. But I work with two organizations in Coventry. Um, they're charities that support men, and actually one of them also supports men and women in drug and alcohol rehab in recovery. And they're called the Dynamo Project, incredible, and also Exodus. And I go up there and I work with these guys and we do conscious connected breathing. I can but quite proudly say that they voted it as one of their top things to do in the projects. So they love it. And at first, there was a lot of resistance and, oh no. But it's quite cool every time I go there to work, there's always a new face or two. And they're like, oh, I've heard about this breathing. I can't wait to try it. So that's really nice for me because it's obviously received really positively. And yeah, I know it makes a big difference to people.
If you were trying to explain it to my daughter, she's 13 years old.
Yeah,
How would you?
okay. When we experience stress of any kind of trauma, which all of us as humans have experienced, our body can go into fight, flight, freeze. We can shut down, and ideally, we all want to be in a nice, regulated, calm central nervous system state, right? But that's it's increasingly challenging with the way we live. I think anything we can do, any tools we can get that can bring us back to who we are. I'm going to use that phrase again because I think it's so valid to help regulate grounding techniques essentially. So there's really, really nice, simple grounding techniques, so many that people can use. But if you don't figure out you have them, it's very hard to bring yourself back down if you're high up here, right? In fight, flight, whatever it may be, and for whatever reason. So there's really calm, lovely daily breath work so the groups that I facilitate, conscious connected breathing, you wouldn't do that every day. I wouldn't say you wouldn't do that every week. This is a big, nice, deep, profound session for many. Everyday breathing, we want to be focusing on our diaphragm, breathing nicely into our tummies, not upper chest breathing. Nasal breathing on a daily basis, really important. Breathing back, almost like you're breathing through the back of your neck, not up. Your airways don't go up. So this is just upper chest breathing. That can cause more stress. Even though we think taking a big, deep breath, many people breathe up here, and actually this is just shallow breathing. So breathing backwards calmly, filling up your lower lungs, really healthy. Just tips like that, things like that to help us ground, regulate, and yeah, come back to who we are is really the point.
So, with all the work that you've done, what is the most powerful shift that you've witnessed? You've mentioned a couple there in your group sessions. What what one stands out for you that where someone had a real aha moment?
I can't give you one, to be honest. So many, so many. Sometimes in the moment, someone or a room full of people will experience something really, really deeply. What is nice for me actually is often I have a lot of clients that come in and they'll sit down. So-and-so's told them to come along and they've finally got themselves there and they sit down and I'm doing the intro chat. I'm fully explaining what's going to happen, how you're going to feel, how you may experience the session, all of that stuff. And their face is increasingly like, oh. And then I obviously go around the room, just check in with everyone individually before we start, just to make sure everyone is good to go, answer any questions. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it. When I have someone that says, oh, I'm such an overthinker, this isn't going to work for me, blah, blah, blah. And that for me is like, we're going to see about that, because the science and what happens in the body when you breathe in this way is really, really cool. And yeah, so I love those self-confessed overthinkers that just don't, that feel like they're never able to quieten their mind and relax. I love to speak to them after a session because I know if they've done the breathing, it's highly likely they will have had an extremely peaceful experience. And for many, I can hand on heart say, for many, it's the most peace they've ever experienced when they go through that integration path. So that for me, I love. I love that.
So somebody listening to this that's had a brutal day, they've got work stress, money stress, home stress, whatever it might be. What's the one thing that they can actually do with their breath right in that moment before it boils over and they go into that fight or flight that we've spoke about?
Yeah. Seems really simple. It's a thing called the physiological sigh. A lot of people, athletes use this. So Djokovic, who's playing right now, I think, he talks about breathing a lot. He's a huge advocate of breathing. One of my favorite athletes. He talks about conscious breath work, being conscious of your breathing. But a thing called a physiological sigh. You also see LeBron James doing this. You want to, I think, hand on tummy, hand on your chest, and through your nose, you're going to take the deepest, longest inhale you can, and almost into your lower lungs there. Almost pretend there's a balloon in your tummy and fill it all the way up with air. And then it's just a top up here. Then it's a full exhale, relax and let go. And a couple of those, honestly, really great. Really great. Just
Yeah,
every day.
it is unbelievable. Like you were just saying, just being conscious of your breath, because we get so caught up, don't we? And we do it unconsciously and we don't even know we're doing it. And we're getting ourselves into such states. But then if we're just self-aware and we start learning about these tools and techniques, and then we're conscious of it and we start using it in everyday life, it can be really life-changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really so simple. There's such a correlation between the speed at which someone's brain is running, the speed at which their brain is running, their thoughts, and really and the rate probably at which they're breathing. Huge correlation. Whereas if you look at, say, someone super calm and composed, they walk in a room, their breathing is going to be pretty on point, right? It is basic. But almost because it's so basic, people write it off. And also because breathing is we automatically have to breathe, right? People just think, breathe every day, don't I? I mean, I often get comments like, breathe every day, know how to breathe. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, it's fine.
I find a lot with my own clients that there's a version of holding it all together.
Mm,
From the outside it looks great, but underneath it's completely different. Do you see that a lot in your clients as well?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, many of us, we're like swans, aren't we? Trying to style it out, but underneath, we're just like fighting for dear life. Yeah, I do see that a lot. I think it's almost become, I think things are changing now, but I think for a long time, it was almost, what's the word? It's almost respected that people did that. And really not great. In terms of productivity, you're actually most likely, if you're doing that, at some point things are going to come down. So yeah, probably not the smartest way, but you live and learn, right? So, but I do, yeah, I know a lot of people like that.
What would you I mean, how would you define this? I mean, what does truly being present actually feel like in your body? You spoke about being calm already, but I mean, not just as an idea, but physically, what is actually being present?
Yeah, great question. I think being present is being able to be still with yourself. It's me being able to feel my toes now, my fingers. It's me being able to feel myself here sat in the chair. And my brain isn't racing, going right now, worrying about what I'm having for dinner next week or anything else, or about ruminating over the past of things I did a year ago. I think it's being able to be peaceful with yourself and just know that in this moment, everything is okay. And look, I'm making that sound very simple and very easy. I fully appreciate that's extremely hard to do. And I really struggled for a very long time. And I think one of the biggest problems is like I said earlier, it can creep up on you before you even know it. And then you don't even recognize the state that you're in. And then if you've come so far, how on earth, where'd you go from there? So I appreciate right now making it sound super simple, but it's not. It's difficult.
Yeah, we're all a work in progress, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if someone worked with you for, say, about a year, or it's like an ex-client,
Hmm.
and they regulate their breathing, they're learning all these different tools and techniques, and it's really working for them. What what is their life actually going to look like on the other side of that? What's going to change for them?
Oh, that's a nice question. Well, it's up to them. A heck of a lot of things can change. Um, what we're doing really with breathing and with regulating is we're increasing our capacity to handle stress. I mean, when in my sessions we do some breath holds, I think breath holds are incredible. What they do is they allow the CO2 to build up in your body, which is a stressor. Then what your body does, because it's super clever, is like, oh, there's some CO2 building up. I'm going to fire out even more oxygen. Um, so it's really cool. But what it does, how that translates into real life is that we are then ideally better able to handle everyday stress. So I chuck some breath holds into my sessions. They're really cool. And really what I see is I have a lot of repeat clients that come to sessions every month, every other month, and they keep coming back because they know and they understand that they just come for the check-in and then they go off and do their life with a greater capacity to handle the stuff that life throws at us. I think that a big lesson is life keeps life in. So no sooner have you got through one thing, more things are going to pile on, right? That's just the way of it. The best we can handle ourselves and be grounded, easier things are in general in the future.
Hmm. You can respond to life rather than reacting all the time.
Yeah, yeah, really nice. Exactly that.
Since I've started my own personal development journey and I've started using breathwork, I've started using meditation, many people have asked me, what is the difference between breathwork and meditation? How would you define both of them, and what is the difference?
That's interesting. Do you mind me asking? So what do you do? What do you do, Luke? So yeah, what do you do?
I listen to a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's
Yeah.
meditations. Do
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know him? Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I will picture, do a lot of visualizations, the future version of myself, the person that I want to become. And those meditations can last anywhere between 5 minutes and 20 minutes, normally depending on how busy I am and how much time I have. And sometimes I will incorporate breath work in them as well to really calm me down and get me in the zone. So yeah, I mean I've done meditation a lot more, I would say, than I've done breath work. But a lot of people will ask me, they'll say, yeah, but what's the difference, Luke? And I find it quite hard to I, I think meditation is more, it's obviously it's more going inwards, but I think breath work's more impactful short term. Is that right? And then meditations tend to be longer. Is that right?
I really don't know in terms of, I mean, again, it depends what breath work you're doing because there are so many styles of breath work. I mean, for me, if I was meditating, the first thing, maybe it's just because it's what I do and what I'm used to, but the first thing I always do is go to my breathing, and I'm going to be breathing it as actually it depends whether whether I want to shallow and like whether I want to breathe light and slow or whatever it is I'm going to be doing. But yeah, I'll always go to the breath and then into the meditation. I love visualization. I think it's incredible. Obviously, our brains are so clever. So what we picture in our mind, we don't know the difference whether or not that's reality. So it's so cool. Yeah, but I think you can do all of these things together. But I maybe habitually I always go to breathing. It's funny how things work out. But when I was a kid before, probably adjacent at the same time as I was playing volleyball when I was really young, I also used to do cross country, and I loved that. And I remember when every time I get a stitch, must have been like 10 or 11 or 12, every time I got a stitch, I'd figure out that I could change the way I breathe. So I'd just change the pattern of breathing, like, and just do a different style of breathing, and that would help the stitch to go. So Yeah, I think for me, I've always used breathing. And I remember when I was a volleyball player, I might not have been able to jump highest or definitely wasn't the physically strongest, but my recovery was really good. My fitness was really good. My breathing was on point. So in hot weather, I was good. Yeah. So maybe just breathing for me is the thing that I love and always revert to. But yeah, I love meditation. I love breathing. I think another thing that puts people off, actually, I will say, is that they think they have to adopt some sort of persona and be wearing yoga pants and wafting some incense around. And I'm really big on not believing in that. I don't do any of that because my goal, again, is to just show people all this is breathing. You can do it in your work gear, you can do it in your jeans. You don't just show up speaking slowly and monotone language and pitch. You don't have to be. And this is the other thing. I speak really quickly. I'm animated. I'm like an excitable person. You don't have to be calm to do breath work. You don't have to. There's this huge focus in the wellness industry about being calm all the time. And it's like, if you're not calm, then you're not regulated. And I think is utter nonsense. Being regulated means that you can shift between different states, but you can come back to yourself. And I think this is a big issue that puts people off of it, because previously I was really put off of certain things because I don't know, if someone walks into a room like they're on a magic carpet and it's always like that, I can't relate to that. That's not me. I like to be in different states. So I think people should find something that speaks to them and that they can relate to, because otherwise it's just not going to work, you know?
I think it goes back to people being more curious. They need to open their minds really and not be so skeptical, but it's easier said than done. I think our brain just fills in the gaps, doesn't it? We assume we know, whether that's breathwork, whether it's yoga, whether it's spirituality. We think, like you just said, you've got to wear certain clothes, you've got to talk a certain way, you've got to walk a certain way, but you haven't. There's so many different types. And you've mentioned a few times about all the different types of breathwork that there is. So yeah, again, as I say to all my clients, as I say to people on this podcast, just try it. It might work for you, it might not, but give it a go at least.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, um, I would like what I say to some of my clients. So say I work with a client one to one, they're like, "Oh, could I do this again at home? How can I do?" Like, yeah, you can, but do you know what? You could just put on one track of music. Put on one track of music. Could be anything. Could be rudimental. Could be anything. Your favorite house music, drum and bass. Could be reggae, whatever. One track of music on. Just focus on your breathing. What I do say at the start of my sessions is, do not breathe in time with my music. Do not do that, especially because we start upbeat. But just put on something that you like to listen to, something that makes you feel happy. Put that on, do some calm breathing, one track. Because again, there is this like sort of I was gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. There's this like David Goggins mentality, like this all or nothing thing. You do not have to go hardcore and stuff. You can just do one track of music. You don't need to carve out half an hour to do a big breathwork session. You really don't. You could just put on like a couple of minutes, one track. That's all you need to do. Maybe just do a little bit of breathing. Good. On to the next thing. Crack on with your day. And I think when we set ourselves these huge goals, they then become unobtainable. Then we don't like said thing. Then we're put off by that and we think, oh, it's not for me. Actually, maybe we just set the bar way up here and we could have just done little incremental steps.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. It always goes back to that. Not getting overwhelmed, setting small, tangible goals, small steps, and you will eventually get there.
Yeah. And I think as well, just quickly going back to the athlete thing, like I think for me, I have traditionally always been a very all or nothing person. Like if I go to the gym, I want to be sweating. I want to kick my own ass. If I do anything, I want to really like go into it. I've learned a lot, even in the last couple of years. You really don't need to do that. You showed up. That's really good. If you've done half a session that you intended, it's great. You turned up there, you were there. So I think for me, it's been a nice learning curve that we don't need to go hardcore on everything all the time. You can just gradually, step by step. Maybe we get just as far or even further if we just do little steps each.
I can definitely relate to that getting older, that's for sure.
Okay.
So, if you could go back and speak to the younger version of yourself that was competing on the sand, what would you tell her?
I would say, honey, don't be so hard on yourself. It's all going to be just fine. And, life has a beautiful way of working out, even though we literally can't see the path, can we sometimes? I do not know how I'm going to get through this. And yeah, has a lovely way of working out. Often not what we expected, but actually just what we needed, maybe. So that's probably what I would say. And I would say, speak to yourself with a kind of voice. You are doing great. And I think one reason I love to do what I do now is I get to say those things to the people that I work with. And yeah, that's important for me.
So, what does the next chapter look like for you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I still regularly run sessions. I rotate around some various different sessions or venues close to me on a monthly basis. So anyone is always welcome to come to a group session. I also do one-to-ones, breathwork, both functional breathing and conscious connected breathwork. I'm also studying 2 other modalities. So at some point, they'll be on my Instagram, but not quite yet. So I'll keep you posted. They are not breathwork, but they tie in beautifully with breathwork.
Brilliant. Liana, thank you so much for coming on today and breaking down something that it sounds so simple, breathing, and just how it actually holds and how it really can change your life. I mean, what you're doing with the brave breath work is proof that regulating yourself doesn't mean that you got to overhaul your life. Like you just said, you can start small with those small incremental steps. Sometimes it starts with just the basic things, doesn't it? Just like the breath, like you mentioned so many times. So please keep on doing what you're doing, and because it clearly does matter.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's been a great chat and I've learned loads. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.